Hello, my name is Mohammed Kimji. I want to begin this video on book number 3 of the Iliad just by reviewing the different important places that we find in the Greek mainland and also some places around the Troad or in the Troad, the region around Troy. And I'm going to pull up a screen here with a map. This is the map of mainland Greece over here. And this is the Aegean Sea through which the Achaeans had to pass to make it to Troy, which is here on the western coast of modern-day Turkey. Around Troy, there are a number of different cities. Here is a very main river, Scamandros. Chryse is the town of Chryses, the father of Chryseis, but Chryseis was actually captured from Thebes. And Briseis, Achilles' war prize, was captured from Lyrnessos. Now, when the editor puts question marks beside a city's name, it means that he doesn't know the exact location. At the end of book number 2, we had the catalog of ships. And I want to look at some of these places here so that you are reminded of where the different locations at the different places are. So Mount Olympus is in northern Greece. It's where the Olympian gods live in ancient Greek mythology. Phthia is the home of Achilles, or the homeland of Achilles. Opus is the homeland of Achilles' closest companion, Patroclus. Aulis is where the Achaeans sailed for Troy. Now they gathered all of their ships at Aulis, but you can see that they can't sail directly north because you have a landmass over here, Euboea, that blocks sailing north. So their journey to Troy was not directly northeast this way, but they would obviously have had to cross the landmass. And it's not exactly clear how they traveled, but it would have been an indirect route. Pytho is where the temple of Apollo is, the oracle god. Ithaca and Kephallania are over here. This is the home of Odysseus. I never mentioned that in my botched up presentation of these cities in my introduction to the Iliad. Salamis is the city of Aias, son of Telamon, the second greatest fighter in the Achaean army, greatest after Achilles left battle. Mycenae is the homeland of Agamemnon, brother of Menelaos. Argos is the homeland of Diomedes, who is really the shining star of book number 5 for the Achaeans. Sparta is the home of Menelaos and Helen. Helen was captured from Sparta, also called Lacedaemon. Pylos is the homeland of Nestor, King Nestor. Done. In book number 3, we find the very first meeting in the Iliad between Menelaos and the one who dishonored him by taking Helen, Paris. The book begins with the Trojans described as coming on with clamor and shouting like wildfowl at line number 2. Again, they don't have a common language. Their voices are cacophonous, and there's a different constellation of voices. The Achaeans are described at line number 8 by going silently. Well, there seems to be very low visibility because as the soldiers are marching, we're told that they're kicking up dust in storm clouds. Alexandros, who knows why, He challenges the best of the Argives to a battle. And he is described in the following way. So line number 15 onwards. Now, as these in their advance, these are the Trojans and the Achaeans, had come close together, Alexandros the godlike leapt from the ranks of the Trojans as challenger, wearing across his shoulders the hide of a leopard, curved bow and sword, while in his hands shaking two javelins, pointed with bronze, he challenged all the best of the Argives. Here we find some of the very common weapons that are used in battle. Bow and arrow. Alexandros is another name for Paris. Alexandros is another name for Paris. And he's a very good archer. He's a very good archer. We will see that in book number 11. You have a bow and arrow, you have javelins, you have a sword, you have of course, he's wearing armor too. He's going to have a shield and greaves. Greaves are ankle guards. Greaves protect the lower leg. When Menelaos sees Paris, Alexandros, he is described as follows. Line number 21. Now, as soon as Menelaos, the warlike, caught sight of him, making his way with long strides out in front of the army, he was glad, like a lion who comes on a mighty carcass, in his hunger chancing upon the body of a horned stag or wild goat, who eats it eagerly, although against him are hastening the hounds in their speed and the stalwart young men. Thus Menelaos was happy finding godlike Alexandros there in front of his eyes and thinking to punish the robber. Just imagine a lion walking on the savannah, a hungry lion panting, saliva dripping from the mouth, coming across a carcass of a male deer or a wild goat. Imagine the lion tearing into the belly of this animal, ripping it open, feeding on the flesh, the head covered in blood. This is how Paris's thirst for revenge is described, as the thirst for blood, for how Menelaos' thirst for revenge is described as the thirst for blood of the one who has dishonored him. It is unthinkable that a lion, a starving lion, would simply walk by an animal upon whom it can feed. And just as it is unthinkable to have a lion walking by a horned stag, the lion would be very, very sick. Something would be very, very wrong with that lion if it did that. So it is unthinkable for Menelaos not to take revenge on Paris. The vision of the human being here is like the vision of an animal in nature, a predator in nature. And this is another very, very useful reminder that in the ancient Greek world, the human being understood himself, in the Homeric world, the human being understood himself as like other natural things. And that's why the great heroes are often represented as lions and predators. And the weak soldiers are often represented as the weaker animals or the more vulnerable animals, the prey of the predator. Well, When Paris sees Menelaus, this is one of the most interesting passages in the first part of the Iliad. The heart, we are told at line number 31 onwards, the heart was shaken within him. To avoid death, he shrank into the host of his own companions. He hides within his army. As a man who has come on a snake in the mountain valley suddenly steps back, and the shivers come over his body, and he draws back in a way, cheek seized with a green pallor. So in terror of Atreus' son, godlike Alexandros lost himself again in the host of the haughty Trojans. So his face changes color. He jumps back like somebody would jump back after seeing a snake when he is hiking in the mountains. He's shaking, he's shivering. And Hector sees this. He sees his brother shrink from Menelaus, and he excoriates him in words of shame. Line number 39 onwards. Evil Paris, beautiful, woman crazy, cajoling. Better had you never been born or killed unwedded. Truly, I could have wished it so. It would be far better than to have you with us to our shame for others to sneer at. Surely now the flowing-haired Achaeans laugh at us, thinking you are our bravest champion, only because your looks are handsome, but there is no strength in your heart, no courage. Were you like this that time when in sea wandering vessels, assembling oarsmen to help you, you sailed over the water and mixed with the outlanders and carried away a fair woman from a remote land whose lord's kin were spearmen and fighters, to your father a big sorrow, and your city and all your people, to yourself a thing shameful, but bringing joy to the enemy? And now you would not stand up against warlike Menelaus. Thus you would learn of the man whose blossoming wife you have taken. The lyre would not help you then, nor the favors of Aphrodite, nor your locks when you rolled in the dust, nor all your beauty. No. But the Trojans are cowards in truth, else long before this you had worn a mantle of flying stones for the wrong you did us. What a stunning passage. Hector is concerned with his honor. He's concerned with his time. Just like Achilles, just like Agamemnon, just like Chryses. And when he sees his brother Paris shrink from Menelaus, this reflects directly on him as Paris's brother. Paris is often described as beautiful, as handsome, as thinking about women, as doing things that have nothing to do with war. He is effeminate. He is described as soft. And for a hero, this is the worst thing. The hero is the lion. The hero is Menelaus. The hero is the predator that feeds on the prey. And Hector tells him, it is better if you had never been born than to do what you did. It is better if you had died, if you were killed before you had married, rather than do this. I guess married Helen. It would be better that than to have you with us to our shame. You humiliate us. This is not funny. There's no strength in your heart. You went to Menelaus's kingdom. You went to Sparta. You carried Helen away. And you've brought on your city shame, and to your enemy, joy. The Trojans, he says, are cowards, or else they would have stoned you to death. You would have worn a mantle of flying stones, a cloak of flying stones for the wrong you did us. Even more astonishing than this passage is Paris's response to Hector. Paris agrees with him. He says, at line number 58, then in answer, Alexandros the godlike spoke to him, Hector, seeing you have scolded me rightly, not beyond measure, you haven't overstepped. You've been measured in your response, in your castigation, in your rebuke. Still, your heart forever is weariless like an axe blade, driven by a man's strength along the timber, driven by a man's strength through the timber. One who well skilled hews a piece for a ship, driven on by the force of a man's strength. Such is the heart in your breast, unshakable. So, the greatest of the Trojan fighters, of the Trojan heroes, is described as having a heart like an axe blade. His heart is like a very sharp piece of metal. Just compare for a second how the human being is described here with how the human being is described in biblical thought. There is no mercy, there is no compassion, there is no feeling for others. There is no gentleness, there is no kindness, there is no care. There is a hero who is linked to values of power, capacity for destruction, lack of mercy, lack of compassion. In fact, I can't even say lack of compassion because there is no compassion in this world. So I can't say it lacks it. I can say that it's not a lack of compassion. I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even know how to describe it. The concern is for honor. There is no recognition of another human being as being you. And there's no recognition of you as being another human being. There's no human family, you can say. There's no human relationship of a kind where each person sees in the other himself. Paris tells Hector at line number 67, if you wish me to fight it out and do battle, make the rest of the Trojans sit down, and all the Achaeans, and set me in the middle with Menelaus the warlike, to fight together for the sake of Helen and all her possessions. That one of us who wins and is proved stronger than him, and is proved stronger, let him take the possessions fairly and the woman. and lead her homeward. So the entire Trojan War at this point is the outcome of the war is to be determined by this one battle, the battle between Paris and Menelaos. The winner will get Helen and her possessions. This is what Paris says. Now, when Agamemnon speaks about this, he will add one thing that Paris didn't say, and we'll get to that. The scene changes to the king of Troy, Priam, who is seated by the Scaean gates. These are one of the main gates of Troy. And he is with Helen, or at least he calls out to Helen. And he says to Helen, tell me who that is. Tell me who that is. Who is that one over there? It's, for the reader, it's surprising because obviously we are deep into the war, 10 years. You would think Priam would know the most powerful Achaean fighters. But he asked, who is that one who's so tremendous? This man of power and stature at lines 166, 167. And Helen says at line number 173, I wish bitter death had been what I wanted when I came hither, following your son, forsaking my chamber, my kinsman. My grown child and the loveliness of girls my own age. It did not happen that way, and now I am worn with weeping. This now I will tell you in answer to the question you asked me. That man is Atreus' son Agamemnon, widely powerful. At the same time, a good king and a strong spear fighter. Once my kinsman, slut that I am. Now, in these lines, you see that, I mean, obviously, Agamemnon is not a weakling. Agamemnon is not presented as someone who can't defend himself, as Achilles presented him in book number 1, or can't defend the army, or isn't worthy to be king, or, doesn't do any work in battle. And we will see again, Agamemnon will be shown to be a very, very destructive fighter. He has his finest hour, his finest moment, the moment of heroic valor in book number 11 of the Iliad. But what we also notice in the lines that I read is that it seems like these lines suggest that Helen followed Paris out of the mainland to Troy. So earlier I had my video about introducing the Iliad. I had raised the question of whether Helen was abducted or whether she left voluntarily. And voluntarily, I had quotation marks, right? Because we know that Helen was promised to Paris by Aphrodite in the bride that she offered if Paris would select Aphrodite as the most beautiful goddess and as the one who had the right to the golden apple. So here, it sounds like Helen was not kidnapped. It sounds like she went with Paris. Of course, how could she do otherwise if she was promised by the goddess? Well, Priam says, and what about that one over there? Who is that one? And he's pointing to Odysseus. And he likens Odysseus to some deep fleeced ram at line number 197. And Helen says, I mean, again, it's fascinating how the great, most powerful heroes in the not only the Achaean army, but also the Trojan army are routinely described in terms of animals. It once again communicates to you that the human being does not understand himself to be distinct from the world of nature in the sense that the human being understands himself to be distinct from the world of nature in biblical thought. And there is another one that Priam points to, and this is Aias, son of Telamon. That's at line number 225. And Helen points out that this is the wall of the Achaeans at line number 229. The wall, Aias is sometimes represented in the Iliad as being like a defensive wall that protects the ones behind him. Well, soon the ground will be cleared and the battle ground will be prepared for the duel between Menelaos and Paris. But before then, before that duel, Agamemnon prays to Zeus. A truce is called in preparation for the battle, and Agamemnon wants to offer a sacrifice. First, he offers a prayer. At line number 281, if it should be that Alexandros slays Menelaos, let him keep Helen for himself and all her possessions, and we in our seafaring ships shall take our way homeward. That was what Paris who had said that initially? Yeah, that was Paris who had said that. So far, so good. But if the fair-haired Menelaos kills Alexandros, then let the Trojans give back Helen and all her possessions, and Agamemnon adds this, something that Paris didn't say, and pay also a price to the Argives, which will be fitting, which among people yet to come shall be as a standard. What is this extra payment that the Trojans will have to make if Menelaos is the victor? He doesn't say. A price which will be fitting, a price which will serve forever as a standard. This will be the precedent. Then if Priam and the sons of Priam are yet unwilling after Alexandros has fallen to pay me the penalty, that's this extra fitting price, I shall myself fight hereafter for the sake of the ransom, here remaining until I have won to the end of my quarrel. So it sounds like the war will not be over if Menelaos wins. And the Trojans return the girl and her possessions. They need to pay this extra price. So he spoke, and with pitiless bronze he cut the lambs' throats, letting them fall gasping again to the ground. This is, the Iliad is not a book for vegetarians, that's for sure. The life breath going away, since the strength of the bronze had taken it from them. Drawing the wine from the mixing bowls and the cups, they poured it forth and made their prayer to the gods who live everlasting. And thus would murmur any man, Achaean or Trojan, Zeus, exalted and mightiest, and you other immortals, let those, whichever side they may be, who do wrong to the oath sworn first, let their brains be spilled on the ground as this wine is spilled now, theirs and their sons, and let their wives be spoil for the children. And they pour the wine. These are libations to the gods. Whoever does wrong to the oath sworn, let the blood from their heads be spilled like we are doing here. Paris begins to arm himself. The very first arming scene in the Iliad occurs in book number 3, line 329 onwards. Alexandros, the lord of lovely-haired Helen, I'm jumping a bit, placed along his legs the fair greaves. These are the ankle guards at the ankles. Afterward, he girt on about his chest the corselet. The corselet is the chest protector. The corselet protects the vital organs. It covers the trunk. It doesn't cover the limbs. It covers the heart. It covers the liver. It covers the kidneys. It covers pancreas. He doesn't even have his own corselet, though, it seems, because he wears the corselet of Lycaon, his brother, since this fitted him also. Across his shoulders, 334, he slung the sword with the nails of silver, a bronze sword, and above it the great shield, huge and heavy. Over his powerful head, he set the well-fashioned helmet with the horsehair crest and the plumes knotted terribly above it. Helmet with feathers, intimidation. It's a common decoration on the helmet, the feathers, tall feathers. He took up a strong shafted spear that fitted his hand's grip. In the same way, warlike Menelaos put on his armor. There's a throwing spear and there's a thrusting spear. It's not clear which spear here is being referred to, but standard armor. The first one to initiate is Alexandros. He throws his spear. I guess this is the throwing spear then. He throws his spear at 346. He's not a spearman. He's an archer. And it strikes Menelaus' shield, but it doesn't penetrate. When Menelaus throws his spear, it goes right through the shield, Paris' shield, and it punctures the corselet. At this point, Menelaus, at line number 361, strikes the helmet of Paris with a sword, and the sword blade breaks. And when the sword breaks, Menelaus rushes to Paris. He grabs Paris by the helmet, spins him about, drags him away, and we are told that the chin strap is choking Paris. It's strangling him. At line number 369, Menelaus flashed forward and laid hold of the horse-haired helmet and spun him about and dragged him away toward the strong-greaved Achaeans, for the broidered strap under the softness of his throat strangled Paris. This idea of softness, it's not a description that you would apply to a hero. And Menelaus is about to kill Paris. It seems all over, but Aphrodite, She intervenes. She breaks the chin strap at line number 375, and the helmet comes off in Menelaus's hand, and Paris falls away. Menelaus takes the helmet, he throws it, he goes after Paris again, but Paris this time is whisked away by Aphrodite. He's caught up, he's wrapped in a thick mist, and Aphrodite wafts him away to his own perfumed bedchamber, and he is saved. Aphrodite then goes off to Helen, and she takes the form of an aged woman. And she speaks to Helen at line number 390. "Come with me," she says. "Alexandros sends for you to come home to him. He is in his chamber now, in the bed with its circled pattern." And Helen recognizes this is a goddess, this is Aphrodite, by, we are told, the round, sweet throat of the goddess at line number 396. So she's not fooled. And she gets angry that Aphrodite has told her to go to Paris. She says to Aphrodite at line number 403, "Is it because Menelaus has beaten the great Alexandros and wishes, hateful even as I am, to carry me homeward? Is it for this that you stand in your treachery now beside me? Go yourself and sit beside him." Not a good idea to speak to a goddess this way. "Abandon the god's way. Turn your feet back, never again to the path of Olympus, but stay with him forever and suffer for him and look after him until he makes you his wedded wife or makes you his slave girl." "No, I'm not going with him. It would be too shameful. I will not serve his bed, since the Trojan women hereafter would laugh at me." Turns out that she herself is concerned with honor, not just the men. "And all my heart even now is confused with sorrows." Of course, her honor is attached directly to the husband. Aphrodite replies to Helen, and her reply is very interesting. It captures how quickly the goddess's love can turn into hatred, how quickly divine love can turn into hatred or revenge. "Wretched girl," she says at 414, "do not tease me lest in anger I forsake you and grow to hate you as much as I now terribly love you." What does that mean? I will hate you as much as I now terribly love you? What's the meaning of love here? It has nothing whatsoever to do with love as found in biblical thought. Love as respect for another human being, love as valuing the dignity that is intrinsic in every person as being the most important thing in the world or out of the world. This idea of love is immediate feeling that can change at any time. And even in your life or in my life, when love is understood as mere feeling, then all our relationships that are built on that kind of love are built on sand. It can't last because our feelings are reactive. They are affections, they are not chosen. They are the ways in which we are affected, not what we will. And the biblical concept of love is what we will. While Helen, fearful, intimidated, threatened, she goes to Paris, who is in bed. And she says to him, at line number 428, so you came back from fighting. Oh, how I wish you had died there, beaten down by the stronger man who was once my husband. There was a time before now you boasted that you were better than warlike Menelaos in spear and hand and your own strength. So she tells Menelaos, I wish he had killed you. You're not as good as Menelaos. What kind of response would you expect from someone who is told by his wife that she wishes that he was dead? Paris is possessed by love for her. He says at line number 441, come then, rather let us go to bed and turn to lovemaking. Never before as now has passion enmeshed my senses, not when I took you the first time from Lacedaemon, Sparta, and caught you up and carried you away in seafaring vessels, and lay with you in the bed of love on the island. He mentions the island. Not even then as now did I love you, and sweet desire seize me. To seize someone means to overpower, to take control. If you are seized by something, you are overwhelmed by something, you are gripped by something that you cannot break free from. What is sex in this context? It has nothing to do with a relationship. It has everything to do with being possessed by that which affects you and under whose control or under which you are controlled, seized. Well, from Agamemnon's point of view, Menelaus won. And he says, this is how book number 3 ends at line number 456. 456. Listen to me, O Trojans, Dardanians, and companions. Clearly the victory is with warlike Menelaus. Do you therefore give back with all her possessions Helen of Argos, and pay a price that shall be fitting, which among people yet to come shall serve as a standard. So spoke Atreus' son, and the other Achaeans applauded him. But of course, the war is not over. Book number 4 bursts into violence once again. My name is Mohammed Kimji. If it is of interest to you, please connect with me on LinkedIn.